It does definitely hurts me to think that there are people out there that don't know us, that believe we would be doing it for the wrong reasons, because I do believe that would be doing it for the wrong reason. If we were just doing it for money, well, then we can go to hell. Like, that's terrible.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild podcast. It's turkey season, yo.
It is, and we're doing the special Young Gun series. So we're minus a cast member here. We had Steve Stoltz helping us for the first couple episodes, and then we did the special youth hunting
extreme
version
Young Guns
last week. That's right. But this week, Steve's out hunting, and so we couldn't get him back in here. And that's been the gist of the whole trying to schedule this. It's like, I should have done this in March before everybody got hunting.
People are prioritizing turkey hunting or being
weird,
in the studio with us.
That's right. So anyways, we're going to continue on the series. Just a quick recap if you're tuning in for the first time. We're doing a special Young Gun series, a turkey season edition, where we're kind of jumping in and talking to a lot of I'd say the youth movement in our industry that's using new mediums, it's using kind of technology to their advantage to get the message out and pave the way, take the baton from those longbeard legends of yesteryear and run with it and take us into a whole new era. And so I'll let you introduce our next guest, but I can't think of a better example of a group of people that are doing this to the nth degree and really doing well at it.
Before we jumped on, so we got Zach Ferenbaugh from the Hunting Public. Before we jumped on, Zach's like, I like to stand. I like to move around. I'm kind of high energy. And that's what we're going to be talking about this morning, is his run and gun style that he's become known for. So Zach, thanks for hopping on with us, man.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's funny. So real quick, when we talked about it briefly off air, but real quick, we're going to backtrack a little bit. So Zach, talking about that restless spirit that Zach has, Zach, for a very, very brief period, he was job hunting back in 2016. And this is before he started the Hunting Public with his cohorts. And he worked here for about a week. And the entire time he looked out that window, and I could just tell this guy does not like being inside.
Working in the outdoor industry indoors.
Yeah. So Zach, what do you remember from those times?
I remember you and I, Matt, talking on the phone, and you kind of being like, we'd like to have you come out. And I remember thinking about it for a while and, had talked about what I was going to be doing, which was going to be sitting, at a desk. And I was like, man, I don't know. I'm not real sure about it. And you were like, oh, you know what? Try it. Come out for a week. See if you don't like it. If not, then no worries. And I came out and
he did not.
Like you said, it was like I really enjoyed it. I actually really did enjoy the people. I feel like it was a great opportunity, and I felt like even the job for even a lot of hunters would be really fun. I was sitting and like organizing footage, and I got to watch a lot of cool stuff before, in the raw form, which I thought was really cool. But yeah, I was just sitting there like, sitting at a desk for 8 hours or whatever, and it was like, and you pretty much, Matt, you're like, yeah, I mean, I knew that this, you weren't gonna necessarily like this after like the first day or whatever, and it's just funny.
The ironic nature of the outdoor industry is that a lot of the work happens on the indoors.
Exactly. And I mean, I still do plenty of stuff indoors, and it still drives me crazy, but yeah, it's just I remember it being, really fun though. I honestly, it was a cool experience for me for sure.
And I think it's cool because that restless spirit, that kind of outdoor spirit that you have, you guys, you went on and took that and rolled it into your own business, the Hunting Public, which obviously now everybody is well aware of. And we'll dive into some of the quick stats we got in your bio for that, but it's really incredible. Like you guys, I think that's why it's done, one of many reasons why it's done so well for you, because that free spirit that you kind of have, you let that go, and that's what the people at home get to watch, right? Real quick, Tim, go through some of these stats.
So last we counted, the Hunting Public has almost 650,000 YouTube subscribers.
They're over that now. I just looked this morning. 653.
Oh. And
230 million views for that 653,000. That is incredible.
And 430,000-ish Instagram followers and 288,000 ish TikTok followers.
I didn't look how many views you had on TikTok. How many views you guys up to over there?
Yeah, I don't know. I actually am I feel like I've actually entered into the old man realm of TikTok where I don't even participate. That's all Ted.
Is it?
A couple weeks ago, I called it Tic Tac, so don't feel too bad.
Yeah, you think you're old.
And I didn't do it ironically. It just came out. Whoops.
What are you guys doing over there on TikTok?
Making some Tic Tac videos over there.
Yeah.
I'm going to call the folks at YouTube, have them come down and film this hunt for
We
me.
tried. Drury Outdoors had a TikTok account, but we kept getting suspended for stupid stuff.
Yeah.
We weren't even showing hunting, like shooting animals, and we were getting suspended. So we just gave up. It's like, all right, this is too much of a struggle.
Yeah, it's a pain. A lot of that stuff is, you always gotta. You feel like you're walking on eggshells because they're constantly trying to censor little things like that, and randomly too. Like you said, it could be something completely unrelated. It won't even be, a photo or video of something dead or with a gun or anything, and it'll still get flagged. So
yeah, we had a shed hunting video take us down. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. We're like, all right, this isn't for us.
Yeah, seriously.
Cruelty to
What did
animals.
those poor sheds ever do to you?
Yeah, that's right.
God.
So that's a good segue, though. Just kind of going over some of the high level numbers here, because that's the whole point, of this series, the Young Gun series. You guys, when you started in 2017, did you imagine that it would take off like wildfire like it has? Because these views, you guys are leading the industry and the outdoor industry and this new technology and the new medium, and really doing a great job with it. So when you set out, what was the goals, for you guys, you and Aaron and the rest of the crew, when you started in 2017?
Well, no, it didn't feel like it was going to go to the level that it has, especially looking at, the first 5 or 10 years. We were always just trying to create, and I guess before I say anything, I just want to say, feel super lucky to be able to do this. It's what I dreamed of doing when I was in high school. When I first started making videos with my friends, it's like the ideal situation is I can just make hunting videos with my friends and post them on YouTube as a job. And I kind of remember going through different times in my life with my family and people in school, high school and college, kind of being like, okay, dude, you can't make YouTube videos. You got to do something. And it's like, well, I guess you can, first off. And second off, I just feel really lucky to be able to do this. And I know everybody else in the group feels exactly the same way.
Yeah.
We love doing it. And our goal originally was just to try to create content that was stuff that we were looking for but weren't finding. And what I mean by that is I remember being in school and typing in on YouTube, because I didn't have, another important thing to keep in mind is I didn't have the Sportsman channel or the Outdoor channel or anything where I could really watch hunting aside from a few things here and there, or if I was at my grandparents' and watching things like on Saturday or something. I wasn't watching tons of hunting content. I guess else I would get some DVDs or VHS on occasion as well. But I was searching stuff on YouTube looking for hunting content since I was, since YouTube started. And I think our goal with it was just to try to fill the void there where it was like, if you type in, I grew up in Ohio, if I would type in Ohio public land turkey hunting, it really didn't find much other than maybe somebody's, especially back in 2010, for example, a real shaky GoPro clip, somebody's gun. You could find some things like that, but you weren't really finding, a full length video. And when we were at Midwest Whitetail, which was also an incredible opportunity and, a lot of fun, we started messing around with YouTube more. In 2017, I went turkey hunting with Aaron, and we started kind of doing what evolved into what we call our spring turkey tour now. And we just traveled from Mississippi to Arkansas, Missouri, and Iowa. I think we're maybe the only places that we hunted that season. But we started making daily content. So we would post even a 5 or 6 minute video just giving an update on what happened that morning. And I remember it's so funny now because if we saw this now, we'd kind of freak out on the other way. But we'd be like, nobody's watching. But I remember we posted one in Mississippi and we're like, dude, this video has 3,000 views. Like, that's crazy. And at the time, it really was crazy that you could post a video that was 6 minutes of an unsuccessful hunt of us just walking around the woods talking about what we were seeing and learning. And, you know, people were watching it. And I guess what we started to realize is it was relatable enough that people were watching it. And that was the goal. It's like, good, bad, ugly. We're going to show you what we learn, and maybe you can take something away from it, you know, for your own situation. And I guess we just kept doing that and continue to do that to this day. And people seem to respond well to that. Just trying to show, you know, like I said, I guess the good, the bad, the ugly. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not always perfect out there. And also, I guess just having free content that you can just jump online and watch is kind of cool too. Yeah. That was, you know, something that I guess in this podcast specifically talking about, you know, getting people involved and like the next generation, something that was always cool about YouTube to me is that it's on demand. Like, you can just type in whatever you want to watch and you can watch it. And, you know, back when I was in high school, I wasn't really watching tons of hunting content. And a lot of that was just because I didn't have good access to it. So I feel like that's another cool part about YouTube in general. And then, you know, creating content and putting it on there kind of exclusively, I guess.
Well, Matt, you've probably seen this shift over time from very polished TV host. Everything is very groomed, to a more candid, hey, it is what it is, and shaky cameras. And
yeah, for sure. And so when we started Mark and Terry, I remember, you know, as a kid watching them go through the interview process. And at that time, you know, they had no, you know, they had no background or knowledge of how to do it. So it was like 50, 60 takes, and they try to do the whole thing in one take, and, you know, a whole long monologue to intro the VHS title, you know, King of the Spring or Sound of the Spring. I remember them going, hello, I'm Terry Drury, I'm Mark Drury, you know, I'm practicing that over and over. And now, you know, it's just you just be yourself. Like, there was I guess like they still have somewhat of a TV, you know, or that style personality.
Yeah, there's a little bit of
like a prim and proper filter, because you know them off screen. It's much different, obviously, and so does Zach. And so it's just that way of that era. And I think you know, they've gotten better at it through time or whatever, obviously. But I think, like, how we film the podcast is very much an unfiltered version. That's how the hunting public, really, that's how all their content is much more their personalities, their natural. It's a natural way of going about things. It's not a like, hey, today we're going to do this, and this. It's like, it's very conversational. And even in the edit style, like, you guys all, you know, you have that background from Midwest Whitetail, you know, and the editing background. But I feel like your production style, it's much more in the now, which is the way that anything that's successful on YouTube seems to be, right? It's a vlog, timely, you know, so to speak. So was that, when you guys got rolling on it, was that something that you discussed? And it's like, all right, because Bill's stuff was always pretty, you know, much like Mark and Terry, it was a setup interview, and, you know, got you in and they would explain everything in an interview more so than in the field. But you guys had much different approach, it seems like.
Yeah, I guess less with like the Drury stuff, really, because I feel like that's become more natural over the years. Like you said, there's more, I think of like, I just saw a snippet of this morning, like Bill Dance, you know, where it's like, you know, that's like way over the top. Like, welcome back to the, you know, and it's like, you know, some of that stuff felt like it was outdated. You know, there's a lot of stuff that was outdated, I suppose. Like, the vast majority wasn't ever catching up. And it just was like, man, if we just film stuff kind of loose and try our best. I mean, we still have our I would say, interview type character. Like we talk about that a lot, where it's kind of one of those things you try your best to get rid of, but inevitably all of a sudden one time you see the camera in your face and you kind of are like, well, I'm going to like explain what we're doing. And it kind of comes off a little bit more serious maybe than what I would actually talk like, or anyone would actually talk like. So we try to come up with, so I guess to answer your question, yes, we've always tried to find creative ways to pull the natural conversation or dialogue out of the footage, which means a lot of chopping very raw footage. I mean, there'll be, a clip with a camera kind of set up where we're talking about the game plan, and that might be a 30-minute conversation, but you want to chop that down to get the point across in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So, our filming and editing style has really revolved around trying to do it as natural as possible, because that's also, it feels more relatable. It makes it feel like you're there. And a lot of other, I guess, productions are going that way too, which I like, because that's my preference as a viewer as well. Like, I also love hunting videos that are not, mine or my friends. I love watching stuff like that, especially in between seasons. And I'm always looking for stuff that feels relatable, feels like me and my buddies out in the woods. Mm-hmm. That's what I like, because at this point, it's kind of like there's always somebody that's going to have better footage of the animal. Like, for example, you take a Drury video, whitetail or turkey, and you actually look at the footage of the animal, it's going to be way better what you guys are getting. It's consistently like that actual animal footage is way better, but it's like, that's not the only reason you would go watch those videos. It's you get to watch the fun, you get to watch the excitement, the high fives, stuff like that, which I also really, or I actually like that the most, I suppose. I can always just type in on YouTube, like, kill shots, kill shots, and boom, I can watch a bunch of animals. But I guess to me, the things that I like to watch are the things that are relatable, because people are having fun. And that's hunting, man. Like, hunting is fun to me. And especially hunting with friends and sharing camp and all those sorts of things. So I guess we've always put a major emphasis on that as well.
Makes a ton of sense. That's the fun part of, that's the experience around hunting, is always the reason why people love hunting. Like, I just experienced the last couple of days, it was a grind. The actual hunt part was a grind, but the camaraderie of getting to the end result is what made a bond. We had a guest come in from South Dakota, never met him, came in, and by the end of a day and a half of hunting, you're like, man, I felt like I've known this guy forever, and I'm sure he felt the same way. And you only build that through, those situational things that happen to you throughout the process.
Yeah. I set out an opening morning here in Missouri in a blind. My buddy Brandon came along and he filmed, and he is a run and gun turkey hunter. And we were trying to film an archery turkey hunt. And it was awesome to be with someone. Normally I'm self filming. It was just fun to have someone in the blind with, to visit and bull crap with. But but kind of Zach, talking to your style, he is a run and gun hunter, and he was like, man, this is awesome, but this is the last time I'm sitting in a blind all season. I can't do this. This is death. And we did it. We had a gobbler come in like right at first light, and I think he got spooked by the decoys and kind of slunk back into the valley. That was the only action we had aside from some gobbling. But let's talk about kind of how you translate your style of run and gun hunting to video, to a medium that inspires and entertains people, because obviously it's getting traction.
Yeah. I guess I don't really even know how it started. I guess the public land thing is probably a big part of that, where when we're all growing up. So like me, Aaron, Greg, Jake, Ted, we all grew up in a very similar situation where we hunted with our dad or a grandpa or both, and buddies. And then as time went on, like we had other properties that we would hunt. Like I grew up hunting, my grandpa has 2 80-acre blocks that are about half a mile from each other. So I hunted there a lot. But then as I went to college, and just turkey hunting in general, like Ohio, depending on which part of the state you're in, you can have turkeys or you can have very few turkeys. And where I grew up, we didn't have very many turkeys. So we ended up hunting tons of public land. I mean, from the time I was like 11 on, I hunted public land for turkeys, and then over the years would hunt public land for deer as well. And especially when I went to college, that's when the love of big tracts of public land and just roaming and having all this freedom really grew for me. Meanwhile, like Aaron and Greg were working at Midwest Whitetail when I was in college, and they were hunting public land. They were making the public land series on Midwest Whitetail's website. So I'm watching that. I'm watching them do it. They also had a history that was similar to mine, where it's like they're going up hunting family property or permission, but also a lot of public land. Same thing with Jake and Ted. And, when we started making videos, when we started the hunting public, one of the goals was relatability. So we do that through being ourselves, farting on camera or goofing off, like, just whatever with our buddies, just trying to make it exactly the way it is when the cameras are rolling or not rolling. But also hunting public land felt like it was a good way to relate to people, because a lot of people are in similar situations, like hunting family property or permission ground or public land. And like I said, when I was in college, especially, I started loving that freedom. And that just really started creating that, I guess, style of hunting where I just wanted to go, go, go. I didn't want to ever feel like I was limited to a certain amount of land or felt like I had to tiptoe around a spot, because I had done tons of that throughout my life, like hunting those 80-acre properties of my grandpa's. It was my grandpa has a sit still hunting style. It's very much you sit in this stand on opening day, or for, a weekend of gun season, you're going to shoot a buck, Zach. So I would do that. And I enjoyed that style. I mean, I fell in love with hunting doing that. Yeah. Then when I was in college and I was with my buddies and we have all this, what felt like at the time, especially it felt like at the time, endless land with, you could go in the woods and you could walk for forever. I mean, at that time, I didn't have a smartphone. I was looking at Google Earth, and then we would actually print these printer pieces of paper with the aerial image on it, and that was our map.
Yeah.
And when we started doing that, we started to realize that there's all this awesome opportunity, and that was just in college. I went to Iowa and started working at Midwest Whitetail, and that when I moved to Iowa, I decided I'm going to just hunt public land for everything exclusively for a long time here. And just like at the time, I think I was like forever. And I hate saying forever now. I still do just hunt public land, but I don't want to say forever, but I'm still on that. And it has changed the way that I view hunting, and it has made it so much more fun that I look back and I'm like, man, think about all the opportunities I had to get out of it because I was bored. And think about all the kids or adults out there that are similar to me, where they're super, you want to be active. You can't sit still. You're constantly wondering what's around, what's over that ridge, or, what's around that bend of the river. And if you have that type of personality, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And there still can be a place for you in hunting. And I guess I just felt like somewhere around the time we started the hunting public, I started feeling like there was this serious push of you have to do it this way. And kind of my nature too is if you start saying things like that to me, I start being like, okay, I want to do it differently just to prove that there is another way, just to be a little different. And it's not to like, it really isn't as much to make somebody mad. Well, it isn't to make somebody mad. It's more to show somebody else that is also like me that, hey, it's okay to, it's okay to not sit down for 2 or 3 days in a row while turkey hunting just because you want to run and gun. Like, if you don't, I may not set up on a tree even for a couple of days because I'm not hearing one,
Yeah.
But anyway,
you just described my Monday. No, I think it's good. And, it's, you guys hit on something special because you're highlighting a totally different aspect. And I think and I've seen some interviews out there where, even Aaron, talked about like the private land, kind of scenario versus public land and maybe, what the industry has gone towards and the TV shows and all that on private land. And I think it's that aspect that you're talking about. And certainly that's the aspect that we've focused on in the last 15 years is managing properties and trying to grow big deer and habitat for turkeys.
There's a lot of relatability in that too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's just different because as more and more land gets gobbled up, as more land gets leased or owned or whatever, you're right. There's a section of the public, the hunting public, that have to rely on
That's hunting. The name of their YouTube channel.
Thanks, Tim. They have to rely on public land to be able to get the fix, right? To go outdoors. And so you guys hit, that's what I said early on when I started with is that timing. You hit a timing that was impeccable, really, because there's a little bit of a separation that's happened in the last decade, to 2 decades, probably 15 years, where there's more and more, big landowners and, even 80 acres or 100 acres or whatever. And it's like, man, that's where I used to hunt. That used to be my permission piece or whatever. It's like, okay, so if I want to stay involved in hunting, I'm going to go to this public ground. So I want to, I guess, fast forward a little bit here or transition into specifically about turkey hunting. When you guys turkey hunt, because I think famously, when I think of the hunting public, I think mostly about whitetails, and you guys going out and succeeding whitetail hunting in different states. But when you go, what's your approach when you think about turkey hunting and how you look at a piece of hunting, a piece of public ground? Is it a different approach than deer hunting, or is it still that same running? Because turkey hunting, run and gun style, it can be pretty successful. That's a standard. But for deer hunting, I think that's a lot, it's a lot different. It's a little more difficult, in my opinion, to do that style. Obviously, a lot of people can succeed at it. So when you go into turkey hunting and you're thinking about it, and it's like, all right, this piece of public ground, is that just what's as you look at a piece of public ground, what is your approach going in for turkey season? Pre-scouting and the months leading into it, boots on the ground, or just, hey, we're going to get in here, we're going to locate, and then we're going to go from there?
Kind of the second part is the nutshell version of it. But we all spend a lot of time looking at places on the map before we go, especially places that we have locked in. But at the same time, there's, if you look at a list of 10 states, for example, you may end up spending hours from the time deer season starts until turkey season starts looking at one state that you're planning on tackling. Like I just got done in South Carolina, which is one that I'd never been to before. And that's one I've been looking at more than all the other ones that I plan to go to. But then there's some that I don't look at all. The only thing that I guess I would look at is, or I shouldn't say look at it all, is I only look at, okay, that's the general vicinity that I'm going to start. Mm-hmm. I can tell there's not tons of access on it is a thing that I really like personally, because like I said, I like that room to roam. But that's not to say either, I guess this is just my style being a traveling hunter, I suppose, because there's tons of places over the years, especially back home, that are smaller pieces that when you have the time to dissect those a little bit more, they're still great properties. But a lot of times I just will be like, okay, that's the general vicinity. I got so many options. I might pick a couple of different, I guess, areas within those bigger blocks, like at a certain elevation or where there's different creeks that run through it. Because when turkey hunting, the number one thing that I look for as a starting point is just some sort of stream. I mean, we've always said permanent water, but this season I've kind of started being like, I don't know why we say permanent water, because like permanent water could be a pond. And like, I don't think that's still beneficial to a turkey. Like they can still go to a pond and drink water, but like when you got a stream, that's where you're getting your more frequently you're getting your wintering flocks, and they're kind of dispersing from there. So that's a good starting point. If you got a big river or even a bunch of different creeks going through pieces of public land, that's a good starting point. And then from there, just dissecting the terrain or the habitat and trying to figure out areas where you can hear. And then once you get there, just checking out those areas, trying to see if, roads are actually real or if they're gated, or, sometimes you pull up to a spot and there's a giant oak tree laying across the road and you're like, okay, well, we can't go in right here. You're just trying to make adjustments in that way when you first get there, and then also just trying to pin as many places where you can hear turkeys as possible. So in an ideal situation, you kind of look at your map beforehand, and no joke, I mean, it's gotten to a point now, and I think a lot of this just comes with added confidence and just generally less concern about failure, like knowing that sometimes it's going to be successful, sometimes it's going to fail. I can't worry about it. I got to just go try. It's like in an ideal world, you look at the map, you're like, all right, tomorrow we're going to go check this spot out. You roll in and you hear a turkey at first light, and then you drive to another spot and you hear another turkey. Now you've got like a couple of different pins to start. And then throughout the middle of the day or later in the morning, you might work your way through there, calling, trying to get them to gobble again, or just look for sign. And then you can revisit those places. And real quickly, if you, kind of find a style in that way, without going into like way too much detail about it, if you find a style that works for you, where you can just kind of go revisit those areas, that's generally kind of the progression that we have when we go to different areas to turkey hunt. And like sometimes it's a complete failure. You're standing there for like 2 mornings in a row and you're just like, maybe they don't even exist here. That happens. But you as you learn more and more about it, you start to get a little bit better at just picking out the variables that may change the population of turkeys in the area, or like whether that be hunting pressure or like elevation is one, especially out west or in the eastern mountains as well. You might start to find like at a certain point or early in the season, way up high, way up in the mountains, it's like kind of still winter up there, but then there's a certain elevation band where things have started to turn on. So you start getting a little bit better at those little things, I suppose. And nothing is set in stone either with turkey, which is pretty fun and keeps you on your toes. Like you might think, oh man, this is gonna be a great spot, and it's a total bust. And then you go to the next spot, and for whatever reason, it seems like it makes no sense, and then there's just tons of them there. So I guess it's a lot of just trial and error too. But
what would you say like the average acreage is per block, per public land block that you guys, is it just very totally, or is there like, hey, usually it's at least 250 acres or something like that? Because I think about it, when we go run and gun and the private land side of things, whether it's a lease or something that the guys own, they'll strike, and we did this yesterday or Monday, strike a bunch of dirt, might be 160 acres, and we didn't hear any turkeys. We went around the whole property, and it's like, all right, they're not gobbling today. Let's go to the next piece of dirt, next piece of dirt. How do you guys approach that style and on hunting, just public ground?
I guess one thing, I don't know how well I can answer the acreage thing, because it does vary so much, when you start looking at broken land too, like even if you're on a greater, or, a grand scale where you're hunting a big chunk of national forest or something, there's usually still chunks that kind of are surrounded by by private and maybe only have one access point that are a smaller like chunk or parcel within this bigger piece. So, that can vary so much. But I think one thing that is becoming more and more important to us every year is learning and getting better at figuring out what you can and can't hear from certain locations. So, for example, there's tons of areas out there that we have come across over the years where you pull up on the road and there's a pull off right on the highest point overlooking a big creek bottom. And sometimes you roll up and it's great. Nobody's there, and you pull up and you can hear a ton, and boom, turkey gobbles, maybe 2 turkeys gobble down in there. And that's great. But there's also a lot of situations in which those obvious places, guys, especially local guys, have been listening in those areas for sometimes weeks leading up to the season. So when you're hunting areas that have heavily pressured, or, that are heavily pressured, trying to figure out, kind of oddball techniques of how to listen into different country or terrain or even habitat has been really beneficial to us over the years. And just one of those things that has taken us some time to even realize is as important as it is. So a good example, a simple example would be if there's a whole bunch of that top access where people are parking up on the top and walking out a trail that leads out towards a creek bottom. And the whole time you're able to stay up high, you can hear a lot. There's generally going to be people doing that. But if you're looking at the map on the other hand and you see a place where a road goes through a piece of public, but it runs the creek bottom, and on either side, you got to walk straight up some pretty rugged terrain. But once you get up there, then you're going to be able to hear, a whole new valley. Trying to focus on those things has been extremely helpful. And I mean, the list kind of goes on, and there's all kinds of different situations in which we've done something creative. And I mean, I've got to a point where with deer hunting, for example, something that ends up coming up a lot when having these conversations about deer is you got to find some creative access. And I feel like it's been hit so hard over the years that it's like, well, what does that even mean? The only real way to talk about that is like to go into detail about the very specific, about the specifics of that creative access, because it varies so much. Like one other example in turkey hunting is 2 seasons ago, we were down south and the area was getting hit pretty hard. It was relatively flat. There was a lot of access, and Jake and I ended up finding where there was this piece of public and there was a big bend of the river, and from the road access, there was a giant slough that just like blocked off this big, it essentially created an island of public land. So we drove like an hour, rented a canoe for like, nothing, rented it for like 3 days or whatever, drove it back to the spot, paddled upstream to get into this island, big oxbow of the river. And it had 2 or 3 turkeys gobbling in it. And I just feel like that's another good example of trying to think outside the box a little bit and put your ears on something that isn't easily accessible. In turkey hunting, we found that to be pretty helpful.
So it kind of goes with the cliche of, you got to go further in where nobody else is really willing to go, but it's the reality is what you're saying.
Yeah. That's
yes and no, though. Were you going to say something, Tim?
No, go ahead, Zach.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, one other thing that it's not always deep either, I guess, is an important thing to mention. Sometimes it's just realizing that you can't hear a certain thing from the road or the main trail. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like maybe a terrain piece is blocking off just a little sliver of creek bottom that runs into the public, but you got to walk, just even 300 yards over there to hear it. But most guys are standing at the truck or just driving right past that spot and being like, there's not enough room to work with it, if that makes any sense.
It's another dimension, and I run into this to a lesser extent on a lot of my permission pieces, but not only are you hunting the animal, but you are trying to hunt around or avoid other people. And so like one of the places I hunt, if you hunt on this side of the highway, you have to wear blaze orange because rifles are allowed during firearm season. On the other side of the highway, you don't have to wear blaze orange because the municipality prohibits firearm usage. And I always like hunting on the east side of my spots during firearm season because I don't think that the deer can see my blaze orange vest I have on, but the neighbors can. And I don't like that dynamic of them knowing I'm out there and, maybe trying to spoil my hunt or freaking whatever. But that's, Zach, I think that's kind of another dimension that you guys are helping people understand is not only you're trying to kill this animal, but you're also trying to work around not only other hunters, but other like public land has multi-use ethic on it in a lot of places. So mountain bikers, hikers, bird watchers, fishermen, there's a whole gamut of people that have just as much of a right to be there as we do as hunters, but you got to play together nicely. Yeah.
Yeah. And the number one thing is be nice. Don't be an asshole and then you're probably going to be fine,
Do you run into that sometimes? The asshole element?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's definitely some stories. I mean, we got all kinds of varying stories from weird stuff to people being rude. Yeah. But for the most part, no. I mean, I think one thing when I was a kid, like my grandpa would always tell me, you're gonna get shot hunting that public land, and you shouldn't do it. And I think that your odds of bumping into people are higher on public land, but if you're thinking it through, like if you're not parking in on somebody, or if there's a small piece, like let's say there's only 100 acres on one side of the road and there's only one access point and there's somebody's truck parked there and you go in there, it's like, I mean, yeah, you're probably going to run into them. You're probably going to hear them calling, so we just avoid that and just default back to, if it looks like if there's a situation we're going to run into somebody, then we just leave it alone. Like, whatever, we'll find something else to do. That's okay. Or maybe come back a different day. But being nice is the number one thing. And also I think this is easier said than done, but having grown up hunting on my grandpa's property, for example, for deer a lot, it was hard for me to deal with hunting pressure just like it is for everybody. Like there's that frustration. Like when I first started deer hunting, I would be like, man, like kind of the classic. I kind of think of there's these classic things that we say as hunters. It's like, oh man, someone went in there and ruined it. It's like, well, did they really? Or are they just doing the same things that you're doing? Yeah. Probably the second. They're probably going in there trying to kill a deer and probably trying to be sneaky. Are there some people that, like bump them around a little bit more? Certainly. But if you start worrying about that and not focusing on what you can do differently, then you're just going to be banging your head against the wall all season, whether you're deer or turkey hunting. Like, you got to just cut your losses and move on. Mm-hmm. If somebody comes in, let's say you roost a turkey and you know exactly where he is. You wake up at 3 a.m. and you sneak in there and you get set up to where you're like, man, I think I got a really good chance at this turkey. Starts getting daylight and he's gobbling. You're like, oh, sweet. Then, some guy comes in and busts him off the roost. If you get pissed off and you start worrying about that, then you're ruined for the week, or you're ruined for the weekend, or whatever. You got to just let it go. It's okay. It's just hunting. That type of stuff's going to happen. It's going to probably happen in a lot of situations on permission piece as well, where you don't have complete control. Like it can happen anywhere. And I just feel like one thing that, more days afield has taught me is a lot of the things that we think matter probably don't even really matter that much. Like, for example, been hunting this area a little bit more the last few years, and it is like the most packed dirt biking place I've ever seen in my life. But I think people aren't hunting there because it's there's a lot of people that dirt bike there, like four-wheelers, dirt bikes, whatever. And it makes a lot of noise, but we keep going back there because we keep finding animals. As long as you just avoid those obvious areas that they're frequenting, I think it's driving the hunters out, if that makes sense. So like, that those noises and those things that we feel like really matter, feel like the animals get accustomed to it. Like hikers, for example, you see a place where there's a lot of hikers, you might be thinking like, oh, they're just bumping those animals around. I'm like, yeah, they're probably bumping them around, but I think of it as like, you know, the family coming down the trail wearing their like super bright colors, and they're talking real loud to each other. A turkey or a deer or an elk, even, like, they see that and they're like, okay, that's like not really even a threat. I'll just kind of run on the backside of the hill, listen for them to leave, and then I'll keep going on with my day. And I feel like, you know, even hunters have a tendency to do that too, where if there's a bunch of hunters, like I used that example earlier of guys walking right down the ridge, parking at the obvious pull off, walking right down the ridge. I mean, I think that animals, for the most part, just start to kind of monitor that and be like, okay, here they come. Like, we'll just kind of go over here for a little bit. And then it comes down to that idea, too, of like mixing it up, trying to think of a creative way to approach something, not just parking in the same spot as everybody else or whatever, and just mixing it up like that. And, you know, the only way you're going to get to that point where you have confidence to do that is if you quit worrying about the things that are messing you up. You know? Yeah. At least that's my thought.
Yeah. I mean, it's the difference between being an optimist and a pessimist. It's gonna flavor your entire experience.
And don't get me wrong, sometimes I get angry. Like, I feel like sometimes people are like, you know, I'll read comments, they're like, man, Zach's always so positive. And it's like, yeah, I think I am. I do think I am for the most part, but like, don't get me wrong, there's still days where I get mad, especially at myself, you know, where it's like, dude, what were you doing there? And I'll just kind of spiral on that for a little bit, and then
serenity now.
So before we jump, we got a few other things we want to run through with you, but before we do that, I want to just ask you one last question. One of the things I think is your popularity as a group, as the hunting public, has grown over the last several years, and the spotlight is on you guys a little more and more and more. With that fame, you know, that you probably didn't really look for or ask for, but it has come with the popularity of the videos and the content, comes criticism. And so the criticism that you often see and out there and, you know, social media or, you know, on YouTube or whatever is like the comment regarding blowing up spots. And knowing you guys as people, I know that would not ever be the intention, but what do you know, how do you guys take that criticism or what goes into that aspect of it? Because you guys have set yourself in this kind of, you know, in this stream, so to speak, of, hey, we're the hunting public. So we focus in on that mostly. We still do hunt some other type of stuff, but if this is the lane that we're in, you know, how do you go get new content year after year after year? You got to find new spots to go to. How do you kind of protect the spots that you've gone to, you know, if anyhow, like what do you guys do in regards to that, you know, around the criticism that comes along with it?
Yeah. Well, I guess first part of that is the intention has never been to blow up spots.
Yeah.
The intention has never been to ruin it, which is something that, yeah, is definitely an annoying way that people perceive what we're doing. Some people. The whole goal with doing it really at the end of the day is to hopefully get more people excited about protecting the opportunities we do have, as well as creating more opportunities, even on private land, like by, you know, creating better wildlife habitat on private land. You're bumping up production of the animals that we're pursuing. You're ultimately giving more opportunity. For example, if, you know, like a buddy of mine back in Ohio, Larry, he's got a 80-acre property, and he has taken that property in the last like 4 or 5 years and just created a crazy cool 80-acre chunk with deer, turkeys, I mean, talking big bucks, plenty of toms to chase throughout the spring, just on that 80 acres, because he's done a ton of work. Him and my other friends, Ben and Keith, and other friends of theirs as well, they work together to create those opportunities on that property. Meanwhile, they turn around, they go hunt public land all weekend. But what that has done is helped guys or girls come into that property and have a place to get started. They use that property as a place where they can help people get introduced to the sport. And, you know, when we started the hunting public, the idea with going to public land was, again, not to ruin it, not to bring any attention to anything. Not even the state. I guess initially we wanted to go to different states because we wanted to just be relatable. But then we started catching flack for that. And it's like, man, there was no intention of ruining a spot or a state or bringing any extra attention to it. We just wanted to relate to the people.
They ruined Indiana.
What's that?
They ruined Indiana.
Yeah, right.
And the whole state.
Yeah, we just wanted to relate to people that were hunting there and kind of document that different style, because I guess we were talking about the idea of the hunting public originally. What I felt like, or we all felt like we were seeing at one time, is you're only seeing hunting videos from like a handful of states, like Iowa, Kansas, Illinois, Texas. I mean, things like that. So you're only seeing these certain types of hunting. But then you go to the Northeast or the Southeast or the Northwest or whatever, and you start to see these different hunting cultures, these different styles, or up north in Minnesota or Wisconsin, you know, you get to see these different hunting cultures, different styles, different ways of going about it. And we wanted to just document that and show that there's a whole new list of challenges everywhere you go. Every place is going to have a unique challenge. So to, I guess, how, and then trying to answer your question here still, I'm not get too long-winded, but how do we handle the criticism? I mean, we've definitely started to tone back like how much we are saying about like where we're going. Like there's times where we don't even say the state anymore, if there are places that we've gone back to. But if we go to a new state, we still try to say that, just because it's like, hey, we're going everywhere. We're not trying to blow up one region. We're not trying to go back to the same state and the same piece of public and hunt turkeys every year. Like that's not our intention. We want to go try different things because, again, we want to document those unique challenges that come from different areas. So we've done that. We always try to, you know, eliminate landmarks from the videos, like road signs, even driving down the road. Nowadays, I won't film a McDonald's because you could type in McDonald's in whatever place and then figure out where those are and then start to relate that back. I mean,
people are really good at finding this stuff, is what I have come to. Like, I mean,
it's gotten to the point where it's freaky at times. Like it's also starts getting freaky because you start wondering about if there's somebody that really didn't like you and you start giving too much information. It can get scary. So we just have really dialed that back. And I mean, tried our best. We've always tried our best to not blow up a spot or a location. But then the criticism, I suppose, too, just boils down to like, I think people aren't necessarily hearing us out when we talk about our intention. Our intention is get more people excited to hopefully protect what we have and increase opportunity. I mean, that is the mission of the hunting public, is like get more people excited to protect it for the future. It's not to ruin it or to make money. Like that was never the intention at all. All we wanted to really do was go hunt and make videos with our buddies. It wasn't, you know, and if we could support ourselves along the way, sweet. But, you know.
Yeah, and
we just want to go hunting.
The numbers certainly show that you guys are executing on that mission 100%.
Yeah. And I guess I just, it definitely hurts me to think that there are people out there that you know, that don't know us, that believe that, you know, we would be doing it for the wrong reasons, because I do believe that would be doing it for the wrong reason. If we were just doing it for money, yeah, well, then we can go to hell. Like, that's terrible. But we're not doing that. We're doing it to, you know, hopefully get people more involved, get people excited, get the next generation of people out there, and protect the opportunities that we have. Because without hunting, I really don't know where I would be in life, you know? It's a like very serious thing. Like, I don't know what I would even be doing. I would probably just be an insane person. Wouldn't have any goals, wouldn't have anything to, you know.
I know what I'd be doing. I'd be working at an Orange Julius in the mall.
I know what Zach would be doing, what he wouldn't be doing. He would not have an office job.
No, I don't. It really kind of freaks me out to think, what if we didn't have this, you know? Even if I was working a different job, what if I didn't have it for, you know, the time I had off? You know, that does some real good to your mind, to go out and just be relaxed, hang out with friends, you know, just have that relaxing time.
It's recreative.
You know? Yeah. It's just
could be a male model also if this doesn't work out.
Sure, Tim. Hey, you're lucky Zach can't see us.
He knows
my eyes are rolling.
I'm sure he's seen me before. A lot of people have.
All right. So, Zach, we have a couple of things that we do each week on the podcast. One's the question of the day. So I'm going to jump right into it here. So the question of the day is brought to you by HS Strut with the DoD signature series of calls. Check out the full line of Drury Outdoors signature turkey calls, designed by 6-time world champion Mark Drury, approved by the Drury Outdoors team. All right. This one's from Kyle from the Rack Pack. And I can't pronounce his last name, so I'm not going to...
Weissmuller or Weissmuller?
All right, so he says, have you ever tried spitting and drumming at a tom turkey with any real luck if nothing else has worked? Zach, have you ever tried that?
No, I can't remember if I left it in the video or not, but a couple of years ago, I was hunting with my friend Keith, and I was filming him. And we had this tom that was with a couple of hens all morning, and he had gobbled enough for us to get tight, but we got ourselves kind of in a weird position where he could see too much and we weren't really quite in his bubble. Throughout the morning, we kind of watched him work away with these two hens that he was with, and we ended up moving down. And I guess important to note, in Ohio, you can only hunt till noon. That's the close, at least for the first half of the season. And we were moving in towards this turkey, and throughout the morning, we'd catch a glimpse of him through the timber. We finally got down on his level, and we'd catch a glimpse of him strutting. So we'd set up and we'd call. And I mean, at a certain point in the morning, maybe 9:30, 10 o'clock, he just would not gobble anymore. Mm-hmm. So we were basing everything that we were doing off of either seeing him or just hearing him spit and drum. And we kept sneaking in, and he wasn't luckily ever moving that far because he was with those hens. And we eventually got to a point where at the end of the ridge, there was no more moves that we could make to get any closer, but he was like 45 to 50 yards, and he was just kind of dancing on that edge, like flirting with that, you know, in and out of range. And we were running out of time. At this point, it's like, we're looking at the clock. It's like, okay, we got 10 minutes left. And there's a bunch of greenbrier between us and him. But again, he wouldn't break, and we'd try calling, and he wouldn't pay any attention. He just kept strutting. That was probably one of the most like love drunk turkeys I've ever seen in my life. He was not paying a lick of attention to anything, which also made him extremely vulnerable, because we were at the point now where it's like, okay, we've got 5 minutes left. And I told Keith, like, if I were you, I would just plow through that greenbrier and just crawl. Like, what do you got to lose at this point? Yeah. You know, it's going to close, and, you know, yeah, you may bump him, but he's probably not going to go that far. Anyway, in the video, if you watch, I'm almost positive I left it in there because I thought it was funny. Keith crawls up. He ends up getting another 10 yards, so he breaks into the range somehow. And again, that turkey was just love drunk enough, I think, that he didn't pick up on Keith plowing through that greenbrier. And also, he was kind of going behind a down tree. Anyway, Keith gets up there and spits and drums to try to bring him around the deadfall again. And I don't actually think it made a difference at all. I think the turkey was just kind of making this similar loop every time. Yeah. He'd spit and drummed, and he hopped back on the other side of the tree. he ended up shooting him with exactly in the last minute. It was 11:59.
Nice.
Which is like one of the coolest things. But that's the time that we tried it. That would maybe be the time that it would work, I would say, with a dominant bird like that, is just completely focused on strutting.
Yeah.
I think it's another time a gobble call would probably just be in your best interest. I would say if you want to mimic a tom, I would say a gobble call would probably be a better option than spitting and drumming, because I also don't think that we can probably do that as well as we like to think.
Those bass
turkey
notes.
hunters.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah,
that's a good story, man. That's awesome.
that's cool.
I've never tried it. I wouldn't be confident enough to.
Closest I've come is a gobbler yelp, but that's a totally different story.
Yeah,
So it's a great
I feel like I
question.
would feel confident enough to spit, but the drumming is such a unique sound that, I mean, I'm sure you guys have talked with folks that can't hear it. I mean, they can't hear that frequency. So it's such a unique thing that I believe they can hear in a way that we probably can't even hear it.
Yeah.
See, I'm a better drummer, so maybe like you and I go turkey hunting.
You spit, he drums.
I'm drumming, and together like we're beatboxing, and I'm gonna pull one in.
And who's got more cowbell?
Oh, that's, I mean, you gotta have I got a fever. All right. The wildlife word this week is brought to you by Sportsman Channel. Each week, Winchester and Drury's Natural Born combines the American legend that is Winchester with a natural born passion for all things hunting. You talk about diversity of hunting.
That show has it all.
That's your show.
All right.
Okay, what's the term for males and females of a species that show differentiations in coloration or size or body structure? Essentially, the females look different than the males. Is it A, sexually dimorphic, B, asymmetrical, C, transliterated, or D, meta?
All right, Zach. So we always let the guest go first. So,
Oh, man. That's a really tough one. I feel like it's something that probably at one point in my life I learned and I do not remember. Can you go through them one more time?
Yeah, sexually dimorphic, asymmetrical, transliterated, or meta.
why are you saying it like that?
Cool whip.
I would say, can I go with two? Are we going to work together to try to come up with this?
I'll work with you.
Spitting and drumming.
So I don't know why I think this, but I think A, because dimorphic to me seems like it would mean two. Di means two. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say A or maybe C, but I honestly don't know what C means. And I think the only reason that I would go with that is because
The trans part.
yeah,
Zach.
I
I don't really have any idea. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm going with A.
What is the word?
Zach's
C?
got the longest I don't know I've heard in my entire life.
Oh, we've had plenty. I've had plenty of I don't knows on this section of the podcast. Basically every week.
It is a sexually dimorphic. Morph means shape.
Yeah, I
So,
knew that.
two shapes.
It's
makes
kind of
sense.
like
That's
X-Men stuff.
That's a good point.
You know, this is how I take tests, Tim. I've gone through this a lot.
Think of your movie catalog that you have in your brain.
That's right.
Yep, 100%. Okay. All right. Well, we need some shout outs. We love hearing from you guys. So leave us a shout out on your podcasting platform or in the Rack Pack, wherever.
Yeah, subscribe, leave a shout out, and we'll read it here on air. All right, so the last part of the show, we have a little Facebook group, private group called the Rack Pack, and every week we get new members. And then the cool part about the Rack Pack, like right now, we're seeing all kinds of turkey pictures. Like everybody's their success pictures, their kids, them. Like during deer season and turkey season is always the best time in there because everybody's kind of sending their success pics and everybody's congratulating them. So we need some new Rack Pack members. All you got to do is go over to Facebook, type in 100% Wild Rack Pack, and it should come up.
Bada
and
bing, bada boom.
boom, you're in.
Be
So-
spitting and drumming with us.
Well, Zach, man, we really appreciate you taking the time. I know during turkey season like this, it's hard to find the time to jump into these things, and you've been traveling and all that good stuff. So I really appreciate you taking the time, and I want to just say congratulations on all the success that you guys are having. Well deserved. You guys are touching a nerve with the hunting community that I think deserved to be addressed, and you guys are doing a great job at it. So I, for one, think you guys, as the Young Gun series, are a perfect example of a new generation taking the new medium and running with it and doing a great job.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. really appreciate you guys having me on. I know that, like you said, scheduling this was a little bit of a challenge, but I'm super excited about doing it. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, I mean, like I said, a lot better way to start my morning than jumping right into editing.
I just wish we would have recorded this. This would have made a really neat show.
Tim's got just the greatest sense of humor.
Thank you.
I deal with this every week.
That was a really nice thing to say, Matt.
Yeah, I love giving you compliments.
Sweet. I like the new Matt.
Yeah.
Guides a guy to a turkey and he comes back.
Yeah, guided a turkey. Yeah.
Fauntleroy.
Yeah, I got 2 turkeys down.
We should talk about that next time.
That's a different episode. Whole different episode.
All right, Zach. Thanks so much for hopping on, buddy.
Yep. Appreciate you guys having me.
All right. Have a good one, man. Good luck the rest of the season.
You too.
All right. Until next time, everybody. Peace out.
Bye.
DeerCast is now supercharged with maps. Get ahead of your game with killer new features like live Doppler radar, wind check out to 5 days, virtual rain gauges, GPS path tracking, and more. Plus, get our 14-day revolutionary DeerCast prediction and access to DeerCast Track. Prep, predict, and pursue with DeerCast.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV is brought to you by DeerCast. Prep, predict, and pursue your target buck.